Movies That Changed My Life is brought to you by the Terrace TV by Samsung. Epic QLED experience, now outdoors. Hey everyone, I'm Ian de Borja, and welcome to IMDb's Movies That Changed My Life, a podcast where your favorite stars break down the films that made them who they are today. This week's guest is actor, activist, and 2020 Emmy nominee Billy Porter. He joins me today to talk about his 2020 Emmy nomination in the Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series category for his incredible performance as Pray Tell in FX's Pose. Billy and I talk about the importance of Pose and what it represents in today's popular culture, what it means to be a back-to-back Emmy nominee after winning in 2019, and the 3 movies that changed his life. Once again, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to give us a star rating and leave a review because every single one counts. Thanks to GinaMo81 for the most recent 5-star review. Thanks again for listening. Here's Movies That Changed My Life with Billy Porter. Billy Porter, Pray Tell himself, it is an honor to have you on Movies That Changed My Life. How are you doing today?
I am as good as can be expected, during this time of really terrifying unrest in the world. I'm doing pretty good considering that.
Where are you right now? There's that lovely background. It looks like a cabin of some
I
sort.
am in a screened-in porch of a home that I have been renting with my husband for the summer.
Lovely, lovely. So I was lucky enough to book you on the show before you got your lovely nomination for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series for your character of Pray Tell, the role of which you won last year, becoming the first openly gay black man to be nominated and win in any lead acting category in the Primetime Emmys, and you've got nominated again for the second year. What's that like coming back as a 2-time nominee now for your incredible role?
I am completely speechless. I have been out from the beginning of my career. I was told that my queerness would be my liability, and it was for the majority of my career. So to have lived long enough to see that narrative turn around and flip on its head, and the very thing that has been my liability become the thing, the reason, is quite magical. And, I don't take it lightly. And like I said, I am just so grateful to have lived long enough to see the day where this transition in the culture and in the world is possible.
Your win was so big last year, and I think that your nomination and the other, nominations of by POC people, in the Emmys and hopefully future award seasons as well. It's really important this year, given I think the current political and social climate. Do you think that there's like extra weight on this year's awards nominees and winners to help kind of show that Hollywood is ready to take another step forward, like in this transition, like you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an evolution happening. Things are different than what they've used to be. I feel like it's really about holding on to forward motion,
Hmm.
continuing to move the needle forward. Um, and the only way we can do that is to continue to show up as artists and as creators, and um, take our seat at the table, demand our seat, whatever you want to call it, create our own tables, as Ava DuVernay speaks of so brilliantly
Hmm.
all the
Hmm.
time. That's what has been happening, and to be a part of that kind of movement is humbling, and it's an honor.
Pose is such an amazing show. I consider myself like a pretty aware, and I like to consider myself an ally for the LGBTQ plus community.
Hmm.
But even so, like there are so many lessons to be learned in
Yeah.
Pose.
Hmm.
Like this whole like the entire ballroom culture I was not familiar with at all,
Hmm.
and then obviously like the subsect stories within there,
Hmm.
and something that I think the creative team and all the actors do so well is you guys balance out the lessons that you're trying to show to like mainstream America and mainstream pop culture, along with like the dramatized stories.
Hmm.
What's like the kind of process like for you as an actor, and if you're involved with the sort of creation development of the characters in balancing out the dramatization and the lessons that you're trying to tell in the show?
Well, I know that all of the credit goes to our show's creator, Stephen Canals,
Hmm.
in conjunction with our godfather, um, Ryan Murphy, um, and then we have Brad Falchuk and Janet Mock and Our Lady J all in the same room. And I think what's so special about this group of creators is that number one, this really unique story is in the hands of the people who are living it and have lived it. Um, that's one of the lessons I think Hollywood has been learning.
Hmm.
Um, we have been learning as well. Um, we as BIPOC people, we as othered people, um, need to be um, the tellers of our own stories. So that is first and foremost what happens with Pose, and it's the reason I know for certain um, that it's so authentic and that
Hmm.
there's such a connection. The other thing I love about our creative crew is that they really are observers. They observe us in real life.
Hmm.
Um, there's not a moment when we're around each other um, that we're not being observed. And, when we're away from each other, now because of social media, there are ways to stay connected to people even when you don't see or speak to them every day. And I have noticed that our characters really reflect
Mm.
um, who we are in real life.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
lived through the AIDS crisis. I came out in 1985 when I was 15, 16 years old. And, we went straight to the front lines to fight for our lives. So that activism component
Hmm.
that you see in Pray Tell and evolve in season two, also me, Billy, being first generation post civil rights movement, activism is in my personal DNA.
Hmm.
So to see that show up on the page is simply an extension of who I am and people who are smart enough to recognize that and mine that for the truth and authenticity in our storytelling.
Yeah, authenticity is correct. I mean, when I was watching the episode where Pray Tell eulogizes at Candy's
Hmm.
funeral,
Hmm.
my note was that nothing you said in that sounded scripted. Like everything felt
Hmm.
improvised and real, and I mean that in like the highest form of
Yes,
compliment,
yes, yeah.
obviously. And so many things that Pray Tell and all the other characters do, honestly, on the show, it just feels like it almost feels like again it's improvised, and that you guys are kind of speaking from the heart and what you want to say.
Well, that is a wonderful, wonderful compliment. And that goes to the writing, it goes to um the actresses
Hmm.
who are at the forefront of um, leading this story. Our
Hmm.
story is led by five transgender actresses of color. We've never seen that before. The stories that we're telling are real. Um, these girls live these stories for real. Um, that's what you're seeing. That's what you're feeling. And for a person who is more mainstream, me, even
Hmm.
believe it or not, I just got to the mainstream, but as a cisgendered,
Hmm.
gay man, I who went to drama school and had all of the not all of the opportunities, but
Sure.
many opportunities that these ladies did not have.
Hmm.
Um, it's remarkable to me to see their work and how grounded it is, and how real it is, and how present it is, and how good it is.
Yeah.
Quite frankly,
Yeah.
with considering most of them have come from nowhere with no
Hmm.
experience, and they don't have they haven't had the opportunities that some of the rest of us have had to sort of practice and hone a craft. It's like, where were they going to do that?
Right.
And Pose has created a space, I hope ultimately creates a world where we can foster a new generation of actors and actresses who are trans and gender nonconforming and all of that stuff, and move that needle to the forefront and the mainstream.
Everyone is so so good on the show. I wish every single person could have been nominated, but in particular, I think
Me too.
MJ Rodriguez, who plays Blanca, Dominique
Yeah.
Jackson, who plays Electra, and India Moore, who plays Angel. I mean,
Beautiful storytelling and talented women. And I do most of my work with MJ, and
mhm.
Blanca is the heart of the show, and MJ Rodriguez carries this show on her back like Jesus on the road to Damascus, honey, with that cross. And the world sees that with the disappointment of not having any of these ladies nominated. I try to stand in the positive
Mm,
energy
mhm.
that awards or no awards, we are history. They are history. These girls go down in the history books as the first. There was pre-Pose and there will be post-Pose. And the world has changed for the better because Pose exists.
Well, folks, if you haven't seen Pose, please go watch
Go see
seasons
it.
1 and 2. It's on Netflix right now. Keep an eye for season 3 and make sure you tune in to the Emmys for hopefully see Billy take home his 2-time Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series award. But now let's move on to the movies that changed Billy Porter's life. You've selected 3 fantastic films, and we'll go in chronological order for you. Does that work?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. All right. So the first film is from 1985. It is The Color Purple. It has a 7.8 out of 10 with 76,000 ratings on IMDb. Directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Menno Mejas, and the book was written by Alice Walker, starring Whoopi Goldberg, Oprah Winfrey, and Danny Glover. The synopsis is: a black Southern woman struggles to find her identity after suffering abuse from her father, husband, and others over 4 decades. So, Billy, tell me, when was the first time you watched The Color Purple?
I don't really quite remember the first time I watched it.
Hmm.
I can't remember if it was in the movie theater or if it was on cable. My grandmother had cable. It was the beginning of that. So she had HBO. So I would always go and sneak down to grandma and Aunt Dorothy's house, my great Aunt Dorothy's house, and stay overnight with them.
Hmm.
And then like in the middle of the night, go downstairs and like watch movies that I wasn't supposed to be watching. Um, um, the color purple, first of all, marked for me in particular a literary triumph that I had not really experienced in my young life before. Like you said, it was 1985. I was in high school at the time. You go to English class, wasn't nobody assigning us Black people books.
Hmm.
They weren't assigning us Alice Walker. They weren't
Hmm.
assigning us James Baldwin. They weren't assigning us Toni Morrison. Those books did not exist. Invisible Man was not on the list. And so all of a sudden, there was this book by a Black author about Black people that was transcending Blackness, that was it crossed over, and I was seeing a lot of my white friends, reading this thing called The Color Purple on their free time,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not a fast reader. So like I was trying to read what I had to read for English class on time so I could pass
Right.
the test. I was not the person who could comprehend reading two things at the same time. There was too much on my plate.
Right.
So it wasn't really until the movie came out that I knew anything about it. And the movie too was also a triumph that transcended what was available to us as Black artists, the level of storytelling, the budget in general,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that like Steven Spielberg, this
Yeah. One of the biggest
epic,
directors of the time.
yeah, one of
Yeah.
the hugest directors at the time had taken this on. And yes, he was white. Yes, he's white and blah, 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 and whatever. But like, you know, truth of the matter is at that time, it wasn't going to get made if there wasn't a white man at the helm. That's just how
Mm-hmm.
it goes. The Quincy Jones is producer, introducing Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey and the acting. And I just, it took my breath away. And while the story was very difficult, just in terms of the subject matter for me,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's also a truth that we as Black people were able to see. We were seeing ourselves reflected back at us in this major way. And we talk, there's a language now that we have that we didn't have before, at that time. And it's about representation.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't talking in terms of representation at that time, as far as I can remember.
Right.
But that's what I was seeing. I was being represented in a way that I had not experienced before on screen. And it was amazing, and it really did change me. It really did enlarge my dreams. Prior to that, I was a singer, and I was introduced to musical theater in middle school, but like, films weren't something that I really dreamed about because I didn't see myself a lot in that. I hadn't quite learned how to dream the impossible yet. Pose is the thing that, believe it or not, that um, taught me how to do that, taught me
Mm.
how to dream the impossible. I know how to dream the impossible now. But back then I didn't know how to do that. And The Color Purple was something that expanded my dreams.
It's funny, the parallel between The Color Purple and Pose, kind of what we were talking about awards, is that it got nominated for 11 Academy Awards. It was not nominated for Best Director, and they won none.
Yes,
Um, I mean, that's
stupid.
unbelievable. I mean, if you look at, not to knock other movies too much, but if you look at the other films that were nominated in 1985,
I don't remember.
almost none of them are in like sort of the hierarchy of iconic films of American history.
But that's what I mean when I say when it's about the work,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what will last is what is supposed to last. And that doesn't necessarily mean
Yep.
it lasts because it won an award.
Mm-hmm.
It lasts because it's supposed to.
So this was, I'm assuming, definitely your first time seeing Oprah on screen,
Hmm.
and Whoopi Goldberg as well. What was that? I mean, you already said like seeing the performances of these Black actors and actresses was very iconic to you. But again, as a young Black man, what was that like to see them and the way they were able to hold themselves on screen?
They were both sort of semi on the rise at the time, too.
Mm-hmm.
Whoopi Goldberg, I believe, had done her one woman show.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, on Broadway, and it was on HBO, and I had seen her and I had known her from that and the brilliance of her character work and all of that stuff. So those things were happening simultaneously, and I was just discovering her simultaneously in terms of that and like being inspired to be better with that.
Mhm.
And then here was this Oprah Winfrey woman who was a talk show host,
Yeah.
who got this shot and killed it,
Yeah.
like killed it beyond belief, killed it. And it was like, there was a space for me too that her performance helped me to understand that, yes, I'm going to drama school. Yes, I'm getting trained, but also sometimes there's something just innately in the spirit of a human being that is all that's required.
Mm. Mhm.
That was what Whoopi and Oprah were. And that was what, when you're in alignment, where you can just show up and be. We speak of that in acting, more traditional acting training a lot. The difference between acting and being. Those performances are human beings simply being.
Mm.
And that's what makes them so special to me.
My memories of The Color Purple were watching it in like middle school, sort
Hmm.
of, whenever it was like, if it was a substitute or they were trying to talk about sort of post Civil War America, and they would like put on
Uh-huh.
these videos.
Uh-huh.
But I hadn't watched it probably since then, and so seeing it again, it's really like amazing that again that like you were saying the film was made in 1985. I mean that movie might have a hard time being made now. You
Yeah.
know, um,
It's beautiful. It's so beautifully done.
mhm,
It
yeah.
really is beautifully done, and it stands the test of time. And for Black folks too, it was quotable.
Mm, mhm.
We still, we as Black people, and you told Harpo to beat me, I'll kill him dead. If like we, it's like there was a celebration inside of having this piece of art in the world that was so epic,
Right.
and crossed over in such a huge way.
Well, perfect. That was The Color Purple from 1985. Hey everyone, I don't know about you, but there are two things I've been doing a lot of over the last few months: watching movies and staying indoors. But now that it's summer, I've been wanting to spend more time in my backyard, so I've been eyeing the Terrace TV by Samsung. It's the first outdoor TV by Samsung, and it lets you turn your backyard or patio into the ultimate entertainment room. With an ultra bright QLED 4K picture quality with over 2,000 nits brightness levels, plus anti-glare technology, you can watch your favorite movies and shows outside even on sunny days. The Terrace also was weather-resistant durability IP55 rated, ensuring protection from water and dust so you can enjoy year-round outdoor entertainment, rain or shine, or for me in Seattle, pretty much all year. Check out the latest outdoor smart TV, the Terrace by Samsung, epic QLED experience, now outdoors. Let's move on to your second pick, which is 1988 School Daze. 6.0 out of 10 with 6.2 thousand ratings on IMDb. Written and directed by Spike Lee, starring Lawrence Fishburne, Giancarlo Esposito, and Tisha Campbell Martin. Tell me, when was the first time you saw School Daze?
I remember a friend of mine from high school, one of my best friends from high school, and she dragged me to the theater. And
Hmm.
she was like, "We have to go see this movie. We have to go see this movie by Spike Lee." And I'm like, "Who's Spike Lee?" And she's like, "He's a Black director. And it's this movie about like, historically Black colleges. And, it's supposed to be really good." And I was like, "Okay." And I was just, once again, it was like, I had never seen anything like this. And I was in college and I
Hmm.
didn't go to a historically Black college, but I had heard about, these things. And I had friends who had gone to historically Black colleges. And, I had no interest in being in a fraternity or sororities. Like I had no interest in that world. I wasn't really from that world. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. So, but there was a Black director. I had never heard of such a thing. A Black film
Hmm.
director. And he was young and he was talking about young people and to show up and find out that it's a musical.
Right.
I mean, School Days is a musical. It was just so powerful to see all these young Black actors on film. Once again, it was enlarging my
Hmm.
dream territory. I could I can be on screen. Like, how am I going to get to the movies? Yeah, I want to be on Broadway. Yeah, I want to be in a musical, but like, I want to be on screen. I want to be on film like that. Like, wow, I can do that. That was why, and a Black man directed this. Like, it just took my breath away.
I had never seen it until this was on your list. So thank you for introducing this film to me. Even today, it's kind of like I've never really seen a movie like this. I mean, like it is hyper realized.
Yep.
There's musicals, the dialogue, the acting, and when I was watching
It
this,
breaks all the rules.
breaks all the rules 100%. Even today, like it's still breaking rules. And a parallel I saw between School Days and Pose, and tell me if you are aligned with me on this, is that I think a lot of the beauty in Pose is that the drama is from within the community themselves.
Right.
A lot of the drama isn't from like
The white
uh,
man done me wrong.
right. It's all about the infighting and like the really like deep connections and problems that can happen with a community like
Within the
that.
Black community. The
And school.
colorism, the
Hmm.
colorism thing was huge for us because for me, it was really the first time that I had seen that talked about.
Mm. In
you
School
know,
Days.
in School Days. It's the
Right.
first time I had seen that talked about in public. Within our community, it's like, oh, she's light skinned. Oh, she got good hair. Like we had those conversations with among ourselves, but it wasn't something that had been spoken about.
Hmm.
In mixed company, as we call it.
Mm.
That's house talk.
Hmm.
That's home talk. We don't talk about that in front of the white people.
Mm.
But yet and still, it's a debilitating prejudice within
Mm.
inside of our own community. It's a debilitating oppression that's from within our community that then bleeds out. And we have taught the people on the outside that same sort of colorism.
Mm.
We taught the world that.
Not only the colorism, but like the first musical number in the film is when the wannabes
Mhm.
and the other group of girls they do a song in like a salon about
Yeah. Good hair and bad
good hair,
hair.
bad hair.
Good
I mean, it's
good and bad hair.
yeah.
It's a real thing. It was unbelievable to see ourselves.
Hmm.
We were literally seeing ourselves and our youthful selves. And I say that in relief to The Color Purple because very often, in my experience, Black people, um, for a long time, all I saw was comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was drama, it was period,
Right,
like The Color Purple,
right.
like Roots,
Mm.
like The Diary of Miss Jane Pittman, like it very often, not always, but very often, our dramas were rooted in something old, something
Hmm.
historical, and something about slavery. And here we had something that to me straddled everything. It was everything. It was comedy, it was drama, it was musical, it was everything, but it was us. It was young us. It was modern day us. It was right now us.
Mhm.
That was transformative.
The final lines of this film is Lawrence Fishburne's character basically running around the college yelling, "Please wake up!
Wake
Please
up.
wake up! Wake
Hmm.
up!" Do you still see significance in those final moments of him running around telling everyone,
Oh
the
yeah.
Black community?
Oh yeah. It's the same thing that I say right now as a Black gay man who lives in the space in the middle, in between. When I think about the civil rights movement, I think about Bayard Rustin, who was an architect of the nonviolent movement. He was the one who taught Martin Luther King Jr. and all of the big six how to engage in this way. And he was put out because he was a homosexual. We put our own out. We eat our own. We turn around and use the same devices of oppression on our own that are being used on us from the outside. And that has to stop. And that is what School Daze is about in in terms of light skin, dark skin.
Hmm.
The oppressed must get their houses in order so that we can then demand from outside of our communities a better way.
And again, like to relate it back to Pose, that's such a theme across, whenever uh, Electra and Blanca are
Hmm.
fighting, it always
Hmm.
resolves like, no, we have to look out for each other, or else
Yeah,
no one's going to look out for us. And
right.
it's a really beautiful theme that comes across, and is so clear in School Days as well. It's really, really a fantastic movie, and pretty cool to see Spike Lee at his almost weirdest at the time, really going for it just his second film, and then he kind of perfects it all and puts it in Do the Right Thing, a couple years later. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, fantastic, fantastic film. Let's go to your last pick. This is 1996's Romeo and Juliet, 6.7 out of 10 with 205,000 ratings on IMDb. Directed by Baz Luhrmann, written by Craig Pearce and Baz Luhrmann, based off the play by William Shakespeare, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. I love that you picked this movie. I love this movie so much. This was a very iconic movie for me when I was younger, when I first saw it as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Um, but please tell me, what are your thoughts on Romeo and Juliet?
First of all, I had gone to drama school, I'd gone to Carnegie Mellon, studied the classics.
Hmm.
You know, now, all this time later, when we speak of you have to understand the classics, you have to understand when you train in the classics. The unfortunate part about the classics is that they're all white and mostly European.
Hmm.
That happens in ballet, that happens in drama, it happens in art. It's always based on what white people did. And so, with as universal as I always found Shakespeare, and the reason why his work has survived all these centuries, it's because of the humanity that's in it that is colorless. I had trained in a very strict iambic pentameter. You mark it out. This is the way it goes. The stress is on this word. It tells you what it means. You do it this way, and that's the only way. I had been in a production of The Merchant of Venice at the Public Theater in 1994,
Hmm.
playing a small role, Solanio and Salario. I can't remember which one, but it was one of those two.
Hmm.
And I had, and I was having a fine, it was good. I knew how to do it. But these two characters had a scene in Act Two, and there was this joke that just wasn't landing. And A, it wasn't landing because it's a 400-year-old joke. And B, it wasn't landing because the emphasis was on the wrong syllable for where we are today.
Right.
So one day during previews, I changed the emphasis. and it got a huge laugh.
Mm.
And the director came for me because it wasn't proper. It wasn't in the meter that it was supposed to be in. And I was like, yeah, but you got me out here with egg on my face today in 1994 because this is supposed to be a joke that I don't understand, so I know the audience doesn't understand, and so
Right.
the only way to land the joke is to shift the emphasis of the word so that I can get the laugh.
Mhm.
It was a fight that was should never have been a fight.
Mm.
So then to a couple of years later to go to Romeo and Juliet and to see the auteur Baz
Mhm.
Luhrmann
Mm.
take that story and put it right in the context of modern day. Once again, the modernization of that classic in a way that made every single person who watched it understand that language the first time hearing it. There's not a word that you do not understand in that script, and it is all Shakespeare.
Yeah, like the little details Baz Luhrmann puts throughout the film, like the guns, they say sword on them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So even if they do little things like that, and I first saw this film when I was like, I was forced to read Shakespeare in whatever in high school or middle school or whatever, and then my teacher put it on, and I was like you said, completely floored. Be like, oh, like this is what all
This
this
is
like
why
this
this
means.
is why people teach this so much.
Yeah,
And for me, the thing that hooked me, I mean, the whole thing hooked me, but
right.
the one thing that hooked me the most was how he justified love at first sight. Love at first sight is a movie thing.
Hmm.
Love at first sight, the more we live and the more, the older you get, it's like it's hard to really, I mean, suspension of disbelief, we just do it because that's just what it is.
Sure.
But the fact that he used ecstasy, the fact that he used that drug that I had been doing at the clubs since 1991 and understood how tingly it makes you and understood how heightened the world around you becomes and how you actually just, whatever that stuff is that's released in your head, serotonin, the
Serotonin.
serotonin that it releases in your head really does make you feel like you're in love with everybody you see. It was the most brilliant thing I was like, "Oh my god. Oh my god. I cannot believe this." Like I just, it's I just think it's a beautifully done. And also just Baz's, because I had seen
Strictly ballroom.
the Strictly Ballroom before that, where he
Hmm.
sort of, we were introduced to his style. It's a stylized thing that I respond to because in the sort of way I perform
Hmm.
in musical theater as well, in conjunction with that, there's a stylized energy that I gravitate to and love. There's a stylized quality to
Hmm.
heightened quality to musical theater that's innate, instinctive, and just inside of me. And so to see a director who has that kind of stylized energy, once again, it made me feel like there was a place for me,
Mm.
being in the business and being told that I'm too much, being told to pull it back, being told to calm down, especially in my film and television auditions. You
Hmm.
know, I wasn't booking nothing because the feedback was always you're too much, you're
Hmm.
too big, you're too dot dot dot.
Mm.
And so to see these highly arched performances on purpose in a mainstream movie like this was once again
Mhm.
somebody giving me permission to dream. It was like, yeah, okay, when it's that, I can do that. I can do that.
When you picked this, I was really happy because to me, Pose is Shakespeare.
Yes,
You know, it has like
correct.
the dueling houses. I mean,
Yes.
Electra, obviously, the way Electra speaks, she's so proper, and the way she enunciates,
And what
every
and how
word.
and what pray tell is in the ball.
Yes, yes.
I specifically have elevated and heightened pray tell at the balls to
Hmm.
feel Shakespearean on
Hmm.
purpose. So I
Yep.
love that you say that and I love that you feel that because that's how I was approaching it. I was like, this is standard, heightened, classic, somebody's king.
Right. And when Pray Tell is doing the judging or the emceeing, there's a
Yes,
lot of internal rhyme schemes that you do
yes.
and a lot of
And I do
wordplay.
that on purpose.
Yeah, it's
I do that on purpose. It's not always there. And especially when I'm working and ad libbing, I will
right.
ad lib things on purpose that are in rhythm and rhyme. So yeah, I'm so happy that you like picked up on that. That makes me
Yeah.
really happy.
I'm glad because it was very clear to me once you picked us, like, oh well, duh. Like, I mean, it's Poe is Shakespeare. It's
Yeah.
there's a beautiful correlation there. Uh, Billy, we have The Color Purple, School Days, and Romeo and Juliet. Do you see a through line between these three films as to why you selected these to talk about as movies that changed your life?
Yeah, I will say that um all three of those movies gave me permission to dream beyond my circumstance, to dream. Yeah, that's the through line for me.
For people who like to dream, watch these films. And if you haven't seen Pose, Pose is all about dreaming and hope and optimism and trying to find the best in people and yourself. And Billy has gotten another well-deserved nomination for outstanding lead actor in a drama series. Very looking forward to it. I hope you're able to pull off your incredible, iconic red carpet look for the digital version of the show this year.
We gonna back off of red carpet while the world is imploding. We're gonna back off just a little bit.
Okay.
I'll look cute, but I'll come full circle. I'll come back swinging when we come back for real,
Okay.
and folks ain't dying every day.
Okay, well that's good to know because people will look forward to that when they can see that again. Well, Billy, thank you so much. This was a ton of fun. I really love diving deep on these movies with you, and good luck.
Thank
In a
you.
month or so at the award show. But thank you so much for your time,
Thank you,
and
baby.
yeah, take care of yourself, and we'll talk
See you
soon.
soon.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to head over to imdb.com/podcasts for more content on Billy and to easily add the movies that changed his life to your IMDb watch list. Thanks so much for listening. Movies That Changed My Life is brought to you by the Terrace TV by Samsung. Epic QLED experience, now outdoors.